The Chaos Dwarfs are one of, if not the most powerful faction in the game, but that does beg the question, who is the best of the best? Who has the best combination of effects, location, and battle prowess to take the crown as the best lord in the Chaos Dwarfs? Well, let's rank all three and find out, starting with Astrogoth Ironhand. First of all, as faction effects go, they really are a bit of a mixed bag. Extra Conclave Influence is really very good as it allows you to pick up seats in the Tower of Tsar much faster and get all kinds of bonuses for your faction and eventual confederations. However, Research Rate and Control are a little bit weak in comparison. They're not bad per se, they're just not all that interesting or game changing. His starting location at the top of the central wasteland could be a whole lot worse. It's not smooth sailing by any means, but the mountains surrounding you limits the number of directions enemies can come from. You naturally move southwards against greenskins and the occasional vampire, both of which are no problem for the Chaos Dwarf roster. Eventually, you will have to deal with the major greenskins and dwarves that are only a short trip away in the mountains, but by that point you should have quite a big blob of territory under your control, so lots of resources to make a big scary army. Over on the battle side of things, his army effects are extremely strong with a little caveat. First of all, increased casualty replenishment rate is goated at any time as it just means your army can spend less time healing and more time battling at full strength. 5% isn't loads, but it's something, which is always better than nothing. The ward save is exceptionally strong, however, since it's only for Bull Centaur renders, it is a bit limiting. If you like making use of those units, then you'll have a field day. But if you instead want to make use of the rest of the very powerful roster, well, this might as well not exist. His unique skills mostly focus on buffing magic and his beloved Centaur renders, so you're really forced to lean into that focus to get the most out of his army. In battle, he's an extremely powerful lord with very strong melee capabilities, alongside access to the Law of Hashut. He can and will carry your battles early on no problem, and will only get more powerful as the game goes on. As for why he made 3rd place, I like to say that all the Chaos Dwarves are extremely strong, and Astrogoth is by no means bad. He just happens to be the worst of the 3 overall factions, in my opinion, and honestly, it's super close. It mainly comes down to his army and faction effects. The influence and replenishments are good, but not really game-changing, and the rest of his effects are kind of a nothing burger. The focus on Centaur renders has brought him down a few points, as he just cannot compete with the build variety that the other lords accommodate far better. If you're happy building Centaurs, then he's probably the best, but anything else and he tends to fall behind. Like I said, he's still exceptionally good, but I just feel the other two are a little bit better. Coming in 2nd place, we have Zatan the Black. His faction effects are a little bit all over the place. Extra caravan capacity sounds good in practice, but caravans are a bit of a fickle mechanic and late in the game can end up being nothing more than a way to burn resources. Inversely, cutting the cost of recruiting artillery and war machines in half is so absurdly cracked, but only really comes into its own later in the game. They're both good, but never really at the same time, which leaves him feeling a little bit confused. His starting location is the most unique of the 3, sending him northeast in the gap between the Chaos Wastes and Grand Cathay. Despite the surplus of enemies nearby, it's a relatively secure location with one path in or out on either side, meaning you'll see any threats coming a mile away. You'll be battling against Warriors of Chaos, then Grand Cathay if you head east, and Ogres and Greenskins if you head west. All of these are decent matchups for the Chaos Dwarf roster, but that's mainly down to how broken their army can get. In battle, his army effects are actually super duper strong. Extra casualties captured post-battle means more labour for your camps and factories, so is only a huge win. Then extra local recruitment wherever he goes lets him build his army incredibly quickly no matter where he is. His unique skill line is a mix of buffs for himself and campaign bonuses to increase his income and labour even further. There's even some replenishment and upkeep buffs which will never not be welcome. In combat, Zatan is a pretty basic frontlines battler. Out the gate, he lacks much armor piercing, but can eventually choose between 2 mounts, and it's either more melee power or magical buffs, so take your pick as they're both viable. In my opinion, he never reaches the heights of either of the other 2 lords in combat, but he'll be a consistent presence on the front lines from the first battle to the last. Now, despite his deceptively dangerous starting location, Zatan has ended up doing really well in a large number of categories. His main strength is his army's ability to capture so much labour for the faction. Having loads of workers hanging around always comes in useful, both for replacing any who retire, but also for abilities that consume them, such as rushing construction. Plus, increasing local recruitment wherever he goes lets him build his and other local armies absurdly quickly. His faction effects are a little bit wonky, and he's for sure the weakest battler of the bunch, but no doubt about it, he's another fantastic lord, but of course, not quite the best. That honour goes to Draz Hoath the Ashen. Right off the bat, his faction effects are really strong. Extra armament production and a reduction in cost for unit capacity upgrades means you'll be able to field masses of the most powerful units in the faction, no problem. Add on everything else armaments are good for, like unit upgrades, caravans and more, and he can have an extremely lucrative game. His starting location is similar to Astragoth, but in the south. He still has the mountains on all sides that keep him relatively safe from external threats. However, he does have to deal with Imrik, who's a short trip to the south, and a bit more of a threat early on than Greenskins. Tretch is also nearby along with a few other threats, both minor and major. Still, with how powerful the Chaos Dwarf roster and Drazhoath's faction is, once you secure a province or two, you'll be on so much of a roll that it won't matter if they send the entire defense budget at you, you'll see them off no problem. Moving over to battle, and his army effects are honestly a little bit mid. Extra movement range is nice and all, but not particularly unique or interesting. Upkeep reduction for Kadai is pretty significant, but it happens to be on units that are some of the weakest picks in the faction. They look real cool, but in practice these are far worse than pretty much any of the other exceedingly powerful options you have in this extremely stacked roster. His unique skill line is mostly slam dunks with upgrades to income, unit capacity, upgrade costs, and a little bit of power for himself. In battle, he's a fairly basic spellcaster, at least to start off with. That said, it's still a Law of Hashut, so he's hardly a pushover and can bring some massive value once he has some skills under his belt. Once he gets on his Cinder Breath mount, he's also a fast, flying melee threat to anything on the battlefield, and all he has to do is avoid getting pinned down or shot at. Funnily enough, I feel like Drazhoath is actually somewhere between the other two in a lot of categories, but rises to the top by just a hair. The main thing that earned him the gold is the faction effects. Armaments and unit capacity are extremely important to the faction, so buffing them both in one is simply perfect. On the army side of things, the Kadai focus is pretty garbage, I can't lie about that. Neither Kadai unit is all that good, so a little ding against him, but aside from that, he's top notch. Great skill tree and excellent battle prowess that scales well as the game goes on, a location that's not quite as good as Astragoth but still leaves him open to taking over the wastelands. As I said at the start, all three of these lords are extremely powerful and honestly towards the top of the overall lord rankings in the entire game, but my pick for the number one has to be Drazhoath. But that's my ranking for the Chaos Dwarf Lords. Let me know your personal ranking in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, and if you want more Warhammer 3 rankings, then check out this video all about the Bretonnian Legendary Lords.